Alright guys, welcome to another painting, and in this painting we are using some of those paints to paint the evening sky. Right, so this is a very interesting kind of a way to paint the sky. So first we will want to have those dark blue paints on both corners and on both sides, and using my brush I'm just trying to make sure that we have all these colors in. So the reason why I say this very interesting is because we are going to see a lot of different colors that is going to be blended together. And right now you can see that we have this purple kind of tone that is being added in the middle. And I love using this brush because this large flat brush right here is able to spread out all these colors in such an amazing way. And we have these darker kind of purples and grayish kind of tone to join the purple with the orange, because again they do not reside in the same place in the color wheel, and so we would need to have these gray tones in order to join the purple with the orange. So as we move towards the bottom part here, you can see that the blues and the purples on top are now being combined with that orange. And so it is important for us to have a transition kind of colors between colors that are not in the same zone in the color wheel or the color space. So you can see right there that I'm having this orange kind of hues on the left hand side, and this is combined with those grayish kind of tones on the top. So again you can see how I actually mix all these different colors by that movement of the brush that is very graceful, that can actually combine all these colors in a very smooth way. Right, so just using the brush, just very quickly trying to complete this area, making sure that we have everything smoothly painted with all these movements of the brush, and that will really help us to have all these paints in. So right now just painting the bottom part, and we have this purple kind of cloud that is forming just above those buildings, but it is at the bottom part of the sky. So again using that wet brush to kind of like soften the edge so that the purple can combine well with the orange. And you can see right there that this purple here is darker, a little bit close to the orange because they are kind of like mid-tone, but the purple is kind of like darker, so there's a little bit of relationship there, but they kind of like combine well. So I use the purple hue for the clouds. So when the sky is still like almost dry, it's not completely dry, I kind of like painted in the purple tone there that you can see right now. It's spreading a little bit because of the wetness of the sky. Just using the brush right now to kind of like do the orange kind of tones, and just trying to make sure that we have all these light orange that are being painted on top. Just trying to make sure that we have all these purples and all these very nice kinds of colors. So I use the brush to paint the clouds. Right, so again as I mentioned earlier, when it is still wet, try to control the wetness of the sky, and then when you actually paint on top of it like this, then it will have all these very nice kinds of spreading effect that forms the clouds, and that will give us this very amazing kind of clouds and all these spreading kind of effects. So using the brush, just spreading out everything, and again using my brush, we are trying to create those purple tones in the middle. Again using different purples because they are not if you use the same purples, they will be a little bit kind of boring. So again try to change a little bit of the purple so that viewers can still see they belong to the same object, but it's like slightly transitioning to another color, and that will give a very nice kind of effect. Right, so using the brush, just trying to recreate all these clouds. So these clouds are very near to the buildings, and you can see right there, these purple clouds can be combined with some orange. And again, you can see the purple is actually kind of like, moving on towards to another color. And again, doing that clouds right there, so you can see that the sky is already pretty dry there, so I kind of like have to soften the edges using my brush. So again, using the purple and the orange, just trying to get everything in, and using my brush, just trying to create all this spreading kind of effect, and that will really give us all these very nice kind of changes. So using my brush, I'm just trying to create the wetness on the left hand side, and using when it's still wet, so I'm gonna apply this dark blue combined with dark purple when it is still wet, so you can see that it spreads out. So that's what I wanted, the cloud to actually spread. So using all these brush strokes, all these dabbing kind of quick brush strokes, just trying to push and spread out the paint so that it will appear very nice on the left hand side. So we combine with dark purples with dark blues, and also a little bit of black at the bottom. So again, right here you can see that the clouds are like far from complete, but I'm going to use my brush to just try to blend everything together. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't look that nice now, because I know that it will look nice once I use my brush and my hands and my fingers, no, maybe not my fingers, but my brush, to kind of like spread out everything, right? So right now I'm just trying to combine or to blend the clouds that I just did using my brush. So I'm just very quickly trying to use the brush to combine everything. That will give us some very nice kinds of colors and tones, and we have 4 different tones. We have dark blues, we have dark purples, we have blacks, we have orange, all combining to form this cloud right there. And of course, this cloud at the bottom part is actually much darker, so we have this dark tones and we have the use of this brush to actually paint over this entire place. Okay, so we have a little bit of reddish tones as well. So this reddish tones can be combined with orange in order to make it blend with the rest of the sky. And right now, using the brush, I'm just trying to combine the orange with the black cloud right there. So you can see I'm spending some time on this place because I want the clouds to kind of like, blend well with the rest of the sky. Right, so using my hand. So as I mentioned earlier, I was going to say using my fingers, but yeah, I did use my fingers in order to blend it. So I'm going to use some of the brush strokes to kind of like combine all these different areas together, and that is something that is pretty amazing, because right now I can see that the clouds are pretty well blended with the rest of the sky. And then right now I'm just using my brush to paint the left hand side where we have this cloud. Again, this is part of the cloud that we have on the right hand side, the purple cloud. So this is continuation of that cloud that we've seen earlier, and I'm just using my brush right now to do a little bit of final touching up, and that will really give us some very nice kind of effects. Right, so now we can move on to the rest of the painting, and we're actually using some of those blue tones in order to paint these mountains, these areas in the horizon, right? So again, Singapore is a very busy and cosmopolitan city, and so this is the city center, Marina Bay, with the Marina Bay Sands, and in the background we have all those buildings, but on the left hand side we have a little bit of those hills in the horizon, and I'm just trying to use this blue to kind of like depict some of the hills. And yes, so we have some of the buildings as well. So I'm just leaving white some of the areas where there are lights and there's buildings. So again, using this living white method, that will really help us to have, all these areas that will be left white and it will be painted on later. Right, so again, using my brush, just trying to make sure that we have all these colors and all these kinds of dark blues that are being painted in. That will really help us to have these nice tones. So again, using my brush, just trying to paint the top right here with, all these lines and strokes to show the structures or the buildings coming out from the hill there, and it is stretching out all the way into the sky. So wait until the area where the clouds is dry first before doing this second layer on top. So we have the brush right here that is doing all these colors and all these dark tones and all these different kinds of colors that you see, dark colors. Again, using those dark colors to leave out some areas so that they can be painted on later with some light colors. So I'm just going to make sure that we have all these different kinds of blues and dark colors, painting all the way into the Marina Bay Sands kind of building. And so using those dark colors and dark tones, just moving on to the rest of the painting right there. So as I mentioned earlier, this part here is pretty dark. So again, adding in the dark tones first, dark blues and dark greens and everything else, and all these dark tones actually form the shadow areas because of the evening sky. It is not completely bright, and so we have all these dark areas. And again, just painting in the dark areas first and filling up the rest of the areas later on, and using this brush, just trying to make sure that we have all these different hues of green to paint the greenery. And again, we see some of those blues as well. So again, leaving white those areas which are the buildings and those lights and all those details which will be painted on later, and just try to use this brush to fill up this entire area. Of course, again, those shapes are trees. So you can see right there at the top left that I actually finished painting those blue areas. So now I'm actually using the light colors to form those lights that are coming out from those buildings. So that is giving us a very, very nice kind of visual effect. Right, so using the brush, again trying to make sure that we have all these reds and blues and so on and so forth. So using the small brush, which is easier to control, I'm just trying to add in all these different details and all these different kinds of blues into those areas. And again, using my brush just very quickly, making sure that the grays are all added in, and the greens and so on and so forth. And so those areas that were left white are now being painted on with all these very nice colors. Right, so using green and using all these blacks and dark tones that actually help us to paint those areas with the bush. And I'm just using this dark blue to paint again all those details. So that will really help us to have all these nice little colors and nice kinds of details. So using that yellow and orange, just filling up all these areas. And right now using a little bit of that dry brush method to help us paint those details that you're seeing right now, which is near to the water. So these parts of the buildings are lighter, and so you can see more of those lighter details. I'm just using my small brush to kind of like reproduce all these details, and very quickly just trying to use my brush to paint all those darker areas first using the dry brush method, and then using the other brush to kind of like add in a little bit more of those lines and stuff to kind of like depict the shoreline. And we're just trying to make sure that there's all these colors and all these blues and all these different kinds of colors, mostly cerulean blues, but we have yellows and we have greens and so on and so forth that will depict this part. So using my fingers also to smudge a little bit, trying to control the paint. We have some reds and we have some of those little areas that I'm actually using my brush to kind of like make sure that we have all these different areas and purples and blues and reds and so on. So using this dry brush method, just trying to pack as much color as I can on this part which is near to the shoreline. So this shows the kind of texture of the kind of ground there with all these different colors and different textures. So that kind of like give us some very nice kind of effect. Okay, using those blues, using those purples, and using those dark blues and light blues, and you know, we have greens and we have purples. So that will give us some very nice colors and, you know, shapes. And all these colors are being added to the shapes right now. And so I use dry brush technique for the ground area that is near to the water, which I've just shown you. Just trying to continue to do so using the brush. Again, trying to paint in all these, you know, purples and all these grays and all these blues and so on and so forth. So that will give us some very nice kinds of colors and greens, and all these, you know, dry brush techniques actually give us some very interesting textures and very interesting ways that show all these different parts that are being depicted. So that will, you know, help us to have all these very nice things that we can show the viewer when they actually look at this part. You know, they're actually seeing all these blues and grays and purples and orange. So that will give them a very nice visual treat, because this is a very amazing kind of technique, using this dry brush to depict textures and trying to combine all these colors together using the brush. Again, using a small brush and large brush to help us with the depicting of all these textures and lines and into those spaces that were left white. And again, you can see right now that this entire place is coming alive with all these amazing kinds of lines and shapes and textures. Just using my brush to very quickly, you know, paint in all the details. Just trying to finish up this entire area. Again, we don't want the entire area to be filled with darks, but just combine it with yellows and greens and, you know, dark blues and so on and so forth. So that will help us to have all these very nice kinds of dark tones that are combined with those dry brush textures that we have just seen. Right, so we are almost done with this area, just using the brush to paint in some of the yellows, some of the light blues and some of the purples. That will help us to, you know, really show this place to be very interesting with all these vibrant colors and all these interesting brush techniques that, you know, show the shoreline of this place. Again, we will want to use shapes to depict all these trees and items and buildings and all these details and the ground area with all the things they can find there. Just using shapes and not trying to depict the original photo by copying every single kind of thing there, but by using shapes and designing all these shapes, and by making all these shapes work by using the right colors, that will give us a very nice kind of color transition between these different areas that you're seeing right now. And you can see that this area right here is coming together very nicely with all these different techniques that I'm also using the color pencil to help me with, adding in even more details that will attract the viewer's eyes even more, and using that small little brush right now to just fill up those final areas as we will finally, you know, finish up this area and move on to the next. So these are some of the amazing techniques that I actually use to paint this area. Hey everyone, it's KY Tom here. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed my video, please hit the like button and comment down below. Do consider to subscribe to my channel for more art videos. Check out the links on the description below to find out more about my art, and I hope to see you in the next one.